There is something dangerous about a gentle smile, though most never notice it until it is too late. At first glance, a smile seems harmless, even disarming, as if it softens the sharp edges of reality and convinces the world that the one who wears it means no harm. But power reads smiles differently. Power is not fooled by warmth, kindness, or soft gestures. It interprets them as signals of submission. In the arena where strength decides survival, the gentle smile does not shield you. It strips you bare. It tells others you are open, receptive, unwilling to strike first. And in a world governed by struggle, this is enough to brand you prey. Think of the lion on the savannah. It does not hunt the strongest. It hunts the calmest, the slowest, the one least likely to fight back. Humanity is no different. The corridors of politics, business, even personal relationships echo this same primal law. When you approach the powerful with gentleness, they do not think you noble. They think you harmless. And when they decide you are harmless, they begin to plot how you can be used. This is the unspoken truth that destroys so many kind souls. They mistake gentleness for protection, when in fact it is a beacon that draws in predators. To be gentle in a world of teeth and claws is to walk willingly into the jaws of those waiting to devour you. And what makes it worse is that no one will warn you. They will cheer your kindness. They will praise your softness. But behind closed doors they will strip you down, piece by piece, until you no longer recognize the smiling reflection in the mirror. Gentleness creates a paradox. Outwardly, it attracts admiration, but beneath the surface, it attracts hunger. People are drawn to kind souls not because they want to protect them, but because they know they can take more than they give. Every gentle man or woman eventually finds themselves surrounded by those who demand endless patience, forgiveness, and sacrifice, while offering nothing in return. At first, this feels like purpose. You believe you are giving meaning by carrying the burdens of others. But over time, the truth reveals itself. You were never valued for who you are. You were valued for what you could provide without resistance. The gentle become the shoulders others cry on, the wallets others borrow from, the voices that say it's okay, even when it's not. And the cycle continues, because predators know one truth: the gentle rarely fight back. They absorb insult, betrayal, and disappointment under the illusion that kindness will one day be reciprocated. It is a devastating lie, because the world does not mirror back what you give, it mirrors back what you demand. And if you demand nothing, you will receive nothing. The gentle do not understand this until they are broken, until years of giving without asking leaves them hollow, their generosity drained dry. By then, they realize too late that their smile was never protection. It was permission. Permission for others to take, to wound, to exploit. And in the eyes of power, the gentle deserve what happens to them, because they refuse to learn that survival requires edges, not endless softness. The smile that disarms does not only invite predators, it erases identity. When you are always gentle, always forgiving, always the one who softens the blows for others, you cease to exist as a person. You become a tool, an object, a convenient presence that others use when needed and ignore when not. Power despises the gentle because they remind it of fragility, and fragility has no place in the hierarchy of survival. A gentle person may believe they are building bridges, but in truth, they are burning themselves to keep others warm. And once consumed, they are discarded without hesitation. Look closely at history, and you will see this pattern repeating endlessly. The leaders who hesitated to strike were overthrown. The kings who believed mercy alone could hold kingdoms together were assassinated by their own men. The worker who never says no is the one most easily replaced. The lover who forgives betrayal after betrayal is the one abandoned without respect. Gentleness, when unguarded, is not virtue, it is erosion. It strips away dignity piece by piece until nothing remains but the hollow shell of someone who gave everything and received nothing. And the cruelest part is this: Society applauds your softness while secretly preparing your grave. They will say, "He was so kind," or "She was too good for this world," as if your destruction were inevitable, as if kindness was a curse you could not escape. And perhaps it is, because in the eyes of power, the gentle do not survive. They are consumed, remembered only as warnings, never as victors. Mercy feels noble when it leaves your lips, but in the realm of power, mercy is rarely received as a gift. It is interpreted as a declaration that you are unwilling to enforce consequence, that your hand trembles when it should strike, that you can be wronged without retaliation. This is not how you mean it, of course. You forgive because you believe in fairness, in the possibility of redemption, in the idea that compassion will awaken gratitude in the one you spare. But power does not think this way. Power does not calculate kindness in terms of morality. It calculates in terms of advantage. And once you show that mercy costs you more than it costs them, you have written yourself into the role of the weak. Consider the empire builder who allows his rival to live, hoping for loyalty, only to be betrayed later when the spared man regroups, stronger and hungrier. Consider the worker who forgives a colleague for sabotage, only to discover that forgiveness only emboldened the colleague to cut deeper. Consider the friend who gives endless second chances, only to find those chances have become invitations to repeat the same betrayals again and again. Mercy is not safety. It is a gamble. And more often than not, it is a gamble you lose, because human beings, when given power over another's patience, rarely choose restraint. They choose exploitation. The gentle do not see this until they are exhausted. They think their forgiveness is healing others, but in truth, it is hollowing themselves out. And when they finally collapse, no one remembers the mercy they gave. They are remembered only for how easy they were to destroy. Mercy marks you in a way no wound can. A wound heals, but the mark of mercy stays stamped on your character, visible to those who know how to exploit it. When you forgive, you are not erasing harm. You are broadcasting a message: I will not fight back. The predators of this world have sharp senses, and they can smell that message long before you realize you've given it. They test you first. A small insult, a small betrayal, a broken promise. And they watch. If you forgive easily, they know you are theirs. They escalate. They take more. They push harder. They bleed you slowly because they understand that your tolerance is not a shield. It is an invitation. Mercy turns into a habit, and that habit shapes reputation. The merciful become known as those who will endure, those who will bend, those who will always explain away cruelty as a misunderstanding. But predators are not confused. They understand exactly what is happening. You are too afraid of conflict to assert consequence. You are too attached to harmony to risk shattering it with resistance. And so, they use you as fuel. What begins as small theft becomes exploitation of your time, your energy, your very life. And here lies the cruel paradox. The merciful often believe they are acting from strength, that they are above retaliation, that forgiveness proves their moral superiority. But to the world of power, superiority is irrelevant. Only leverage matters. And mercy strips you of it. By refusing to enforce consequence, you trade dignity for the illusion of peace, until peace itself becomes impossible. For when you are known as merciful, you will never meet gratitude. You will only meet hunger. The cost of mercy is not always immediate. Sometimes, the gentle believe they have escaped consequence, that forgiveness has diffused danger. But in truth, they have only delayed it, and in delay, the danger grows. Mercy does not erase resentment in the heart of the wrongdoer. It often fuels it. Those who harm you and are spared begin to despise you for your lack of retaliation, because deep inside they know they would not have done the same for you. Mercy unsettles them, but not in the way you hope. It does not awaken loyalty. It awakens contempt. They begin to see you as beneath them, as someone whose goodness can be toyed with, as someone too afraid to wield the knife that survival demands. History proves this again and again. The general who hesitates to crush his enemy allows that enemy to regroup and return with vengeance. The ruler who pardons the traitor plants the seed of rebellion in his own court. The lover who forgives betrayal again and again only breeds deeper betrayal. What was intended as compassion becomes the soil in which destruction grows. And when the reckoning finally comes, the merciful are left shocked, wondering how kindness could birth cruelty. They never realize that mercy without strength is not virtue, it is surrender. The world is cruel not because it fails to recognize your goodness, but because it recognizes it too well. It knows you will not punish. It knows you will not retaliate. And so it devours you, with the same cold certainty as a predator devours prey. Mercy marks you, and once you are marked, escape becomes nearly impossible, unless you learn to transform mercy into choice, not habit, and cloak forgiveness behind the shadow of a strength that others dare not test. Softness is beautiful in the eyes of poets, but in the eyes of predators, softness is blood in the water. It signals not peace, but weakness, not purity, but opportunity. Every ecosystem, whether in nature or society, has its hunters, those who sharpen their instincts not to create, but to consume. And they are always searching for the easiest prey. The gentle, with their open hearts and forgiving spirits, become the preferred target because they are predictable. They will not retaliate. They will not set boundaries. They will not raise their voice when trampled. They will tell themselves that patience is strength, that forgiveness is noble, that enduring cruelty makes them virtuous. But predators do not read philosophy, they read openings. And in softness, they find endless openings. Think of the child in school who never fights back. The bullies gather around him like wolves, because they know his silence is not resilience, but resignation. Think of the employee who takes on every task without complaint. The manager piles more weight onto their shoulders until their spine bends and breaks. Think of the partner in a relationship who excuses betrayal again and again. Each excuse becomes an unspoken promise that there will be no consequence, no cost, no price to pay for cruelty. In each case, the predator grows stronger, not because they are inherently powerful, but because softness creates the space for their cruelty to flourish. This is the hidden truth the gentle never want to face. Predators exist because softness allows them to. Cruelty is not an accident. It is a response to opportunity. And if you present yourself as endlessly forgiving, endlessly patient, endlessly soft, you will not be admired. You will be consumed. The predators of softness do not always come with snarling teeth and visible malice. Often, they wear masks of charm, humor, or even kindness themselves. They learn to blend into your world, to speak your language, to present themselves as friends, lovers, colleagues. They do not need to force entry into your life. You invite them in, because their surface looks harmless. But slowly, carefully, they begin to test your boundaries. A joke that cuts too deep, a request that costs you more than it costs them, a small betrayal disguised as a misunderstanding. And you forgive, because forgiveness is your nature. You believe in second chances, in harmony, in keeping peace at any cost. This is how they know you are soft. And once they know, the process begins. Every predator has patience. They do not devour all at once. They bleed you slowly, so slowly you hardly notice. One day, you are doing them small favors. The next, you are carrying their burdens. Eventually, you are living for them, while they offer nothing in return. The predators of softness are not merely cruel, they are parasitic. They cannot thrive without hosts who are willing to bleed for them. And so they cultivate you, nurture your softness, praise your gentleness. even call you strong for enduring what others would not. But this is mockery disguised as admiration. They do not respect your endurance, they depend on it. They need your softness to shield them from consequence. And the longer you remain soft, the bolder they become, until cruelty becomes normalized, until you no longer even recognize it as cruelty. You tell yourself you are choosing love, loyalty, or patience, but in reality, you are being fed upon. And when the predator is finished with you, they will not thank you. They will discard you, just as parasites abandon a drained host. Because to predators, softness is not beauty, it is utility. And when utility ends, so does your value. The most tragic truth about the predators of softness is that they are not rare. They are everywhere. They are the colleague who leans on you because you never say no, the family member who takes without giving, the lover who wounds and expects forgiveness, the stranger who manipulates your sympathy. And they thrive not because the world is filled with evil, but because it is filled with softness too naive to see evil for what it is. Predators do not need to outnumber the gentle. They only need the gentle to remain blind. Every act of softness without strength feeds them, empowers them, and teaches them that cruelty has no cost. And so the cycle repeats, generation after generation. Children bullied in silence grow into adults who endure exploitation at work, who then raise children who are told to just be kind when faced with cruelty. The predators inherit power not because they deserve it, but because softness refuses to resist. But here lies the cruel irony. Even predators fear those who are both soft and strong. A man who can show kindness yet enforce boundaries, a woman who can forgive but also command respect. These are the figures predators avoid. They know that beneath the softness lies a line that cannot be crossed, a consequence they do not want to face. It is not softness that destroys you, but softness without edge, softness without shadow, softness without the capacity for defense. Until the gentle learn this truth, they will remain prey. And the predators of softness will continue to flourish, not because they are powerful, but because softness hands them the crown without a fight. Power does not always destroy the gentle outright. Sometimes it finds more use in keeping them alive, bending them, reshaping them into tools that serve purposes they never chose for themselves. The gentle, by nature, seek harmony. They want to help, to comfort, to ease the burdens of others. But this desire becomes the very handle by which others seize and control them. Those who hold power quickly learn that softness is malleable. It bends without breaking, it adjusts without protest, it adapts to whatever is demanded of it. And so the gentle are slowly drafted into roles they did not volunteer for. They become the quiet worker who shoulders impossible loads while others take the credit. They become the partner who sacrifices dreams, time, and dignity to keep a relationship afloat, while the other gives nothing back. They become the friend who answers every late-night call, who loans money they cannot afford, who is always available but never truly valued. At first, it feels like purpose. The gentle convince themselves that they are needed, that their role as caretaker, peacemaker, or silent laborer is proof of their worth. But this is not worth. It is exploitation disguised as meaning. And the longer they remain in these roles, the deeper they sink into invisibility. They are no longer seen as individuals, but as functions. A hammer does not complain when it is used. Neither does the gentle when they are treated as tools. But unlike tools, they bleed. And their suffering, though silent, fuels the machinery of others' ambition. This is how power survives, not merely by crushing, but by recruiting the gentle into their own undoing. The tragedy of becoming a tool is that, over time, the gentle forget they were ever human. When you are constantly praised for being dependable, forgiving, and endlessly giving, you begin to mistake servitude for virtue. You tell yourself you are strong because you endure, noble because you sacrifice, important because others rely on you. But in reality, you have been reduced to utility. Your value exists only in how much you provide for others. And the more you give, the less you are seen. This is the paradox of softness. Its very abundance makes it invisible. People do not respect what flows too easily. They consume it without thought. Just as water is taken for granted until drought arrives, the gentle are consumed without gratitude until they collapse. And when collapse comes, the truth is revealed. The very people you served will step over you without hesitation, seeking another tool to replace you. There is no loyalty to tools, only dependence. And dependence does not create love, it creates entitlement. The more you give, the more others believe they are owed. And when you finally say no, when you finally resist, they do not thank you for all the years of sacrifice. They turn against you, accusing you of cruelty, of selfishness, of betrayal. Because to them, you were never a person, you were a function. And a function that refuses to function is useless. This is why the gentle are so often blindsided by the coldness of those they gave everything to. They do not realize that the bond they imagined was never mutual. It was a transaction, one where they paid endlessly while the other side invested nothing. And when the gentle finally break, they discover the cruelest truth of all. Tools are not mourned when they shatter. They are replaced. Power loves tools because tools cannot rebel. The gentle, once bent into these roles, rarely find the courage to step out of them. They are trapped by their own fear of conflict, their own craving for approval, their own belief that to serve is to be good. And so they remain instruments of others' will, even as their lives wither away. But there is a darker layer to this truth. Some gentle souls come to love their role as tools. They convince themselves that being used is the same as being needed. They romanticize their suffering, imagining it as sacrifice, imagining that one day it will all be recognized. But recognition never comes. The world does not reward quiet endurance. It rewards visible strength. And so the gentle, clinging to the hope that their sacrifice will be honored, sink deeper into chains they forged themselves. They become the unpaid servant, the unthanked friend, the forgotten partner, all while telling themselves that this is love, this is loyalty, this is purpose. In truth, it is slavery. But because the chains are woven from kindness, they do not see them until it is too late. And this is exactly why power loves the gentle, not because it fears them, but because it can turn them into perfect instruments of control. A tyrant does not need soldiers if he has soft souls who obey without question. A manipulator does not need cruelty if he can weaponize another's compassion. A predator does not need force if softness itself volunteers to carry the burden. And so the gentle are not only consumed, they are wielded. Their own nature becomes the weapon used against them. And unless they awaken, unless they learn to harden their edges, they will spend their lives not as people, but as tools passed from one hand to another, never realizing that their greatest crime was not cruelty, but endless, unguarded softness. Strength is often portrayed as indifferent, as if those who clawed their way to the top looked down upon the gentle with a detached, godlike neutrality. But beneath the surface, strength carries resentment. The strong rarely admire the gentle. More often, they despise them. Why? because the gentle mirror everything the strong had to kill within themselves in order to survive. Every man who hardens his heart, who trains his will, who builds armor around his soul, remembers the softness he once carried. He remembers the innocence that trusted too easily, the patience that forgave too quickly, the hope that others would one day be kind in return. And he remembers how that softness betrayed him, how it left him wounded, overlooked, humiliated, or preyed upon. To see the gentle still clinging to what he had to abandon is unbearable, because it reminds him of weakness, his own weakness. So he resents them. He sneers at their smiles, mocks their forgiveness, and interprets their compassion not as virtue, but as cowardice. And this resentment is not limited to kings, warriors, or leaders. It lives in every human being who has tasted betrayal and chosen hardness over hope. Strength cannot respect what it had to destroy to become strong. The gentle believe they will be admired for their goodness, but admiration rarely comes. More often, they are treated with hidden hostility, because their very existence unsettles the hardened. They embody the road not taken, the innocence lost, the fragility that was once part of every strong man's soul. And so strength spits upon the gentle, not because they are guilty of cruelty, but because they dare to remind the world of a weakness everyone is trying to forget. This hidden resentment creates a strange paradox. The strong, though they despise the gentle, also secretly depend on them. The worker who is ruthless in ambition still relies on the quiet colleague who absorbs the extra weight. The ruler who commands armies still expects loyal subjects who obey without question. The manipulator who thrives on cruelty still requires a forgiving heart to tolerate his sins. In this way, strength uses what it despises, feeding off the very softness it mocks. But resentment festers because the strong see in the gentle a freedom they no longer have. They see someone who still believes in love, still trusts in loyalty, still forgives without calculation, and it enrages them. Because deep inside, the strong know they killed those parts of themselves. They buried them, strangled them, ripped them out to survive. And to see those qualities alive in another is like facing the ghost of who they once were. Ghosts do not comfort, they haunt. This is why predators rarely show gratitude to the gentle. Gratitude would mean admitting they need what they secretly envy. Instead, they cloak their dependence in cruelty. They bite the hand that feeds them, not because the hand deserves punishment, but because to acknowledge the hand's worth would expose their own emptiness. And so the gentle are trapped in a cycle of exploitation without appreciation. They are drained and mocked simultaneously, needed yet hated. The strong resent them not only for their softness, but also for their refusal to abandon it. For in that refusal lies a truth too painful for the strong to face. Perhaps strength was not the only path. Perhaps the killing of innocence was not survival, but surrender. And so the gentle become unbearable reminders, not of weakness alone, but of regret. The hidden resentment of strength reaches its peak when the gentle dare to rise. Nothing infuriates the strong more than seeing softness try to claim space in the realm of power. A kind leader is not respected, he is undermined. A forgiving ruler is not loved, he is betrayed. A compassionate competitor is not admired, he is devoured. Because to the hardened, the rise of the gentle is an insult. It suggests that perhaps strength is not the only path, that perhaps cruelty was not necessary, that perhaps they sacrificed their innocence for nothing. This cannot be tolerated. So the strong conspire against the gentle, not merely to protect their position, but to silence the possibility that another way exists. They will sabotage, betray, and destroy anyone who attempts to blend softness with authority, because it threatens the very foundation of their identity. This is why history remembers so few gentle rulers. Those who tried to govern with kindness were toppled quickly, not always by enemies, but by their own men. This is why workplaces devour soft managers, why politics corrupts idealists, why love consumes the endlessly forgiving. The strong cannot allow the gentle to prove them wrong. They cannot allow mercy to triumph where cruelty failed. And so resentment becomes a weapon, ensuring that the gentle are not only mocked, but crushed. What begins as subtle scorn ends in ruthless destruction, all because softness dared to challenge the narrative of survival that strength clings to. The gentle think their downfall is the result of being too kind, too naive, too patient. But often, their downfall is engineered by the strong, whose resentment cannot bear the mirror of what was lost. And so the cycle continues. Strength feeds on softness, resents softness, destroys softness, yet never escapes the shadow of what it abandoned. Every crown is made of thorns, and those who wear it bleed. The world teaches us to believe that leadership is about wisdom, vision, and compassion, but history whispers a harsher truth. No crown is secured without cruelty. To rise above others is to accept the burden of enforcing consequence, and consequence demands sharpness. A king who hesitates to punish is overthrown. A commander who spares his enemies too freely is crushed in the next campaign. A ruler who listens too closely to the cries of the people finds those same voices calling for his head when famine or failure arrives. Authority does not survive on kindness. It survives on fear, respect, and the willingness to act when others cannot. The gentle soul who imagines that love alone can secure loyalty soon learns the betrayal of those who smiled in his presence while sharpening knives in his absence. Power, by its nature, resents mercy when mercy is habitual. It interprets hesitation not as nobility, but as weakness. And the higher one climbs, the more eyes are watching, waiting, measuring whether the crown rests on the head of a ruler or a victim. To wear the crown is to accept that every smile hides ambition, every pledge of loyalty hides calculation, every favor granted today may turn into rebellion tomorrow. And in this endless theater of deception, cruelty becomes not a choice, but a necessity. Without it, the crown is stolen. With it, the crown is feared, and only fear can keep the wolves at bay. The gentle recoil from cruelty because they believe it corrupts the soul. They see it as evil, as betrayal of humanity, as the darkest side of power. But cruelty in its rawest form is not always sadism. It is discipline. It is the cold willingness to act where softness would hesitate. Cruelty is sending men to die in war, not because you want them dead, but because hesitation would doom thousands more. Cruelty is cutting off a traitor's hand in front of the court, not because you delight in mutilation, but because the spectacle silences whispers of rebellion. Cruelty is firing the disloyal, severing ties, enforcing punishments that tear hearts apart. Not because you lack compassion, but because compassion without teeth breeds chaos. The gentle misunderstand this and believe that kindness can hold the same weight. But kindness without the possibility of cruelty is impotent. It does not command respect, only pity. A leader who is too kind becomes a servant to the will of others, their crown an ornament rather than a weapon. Those who understand power know this instinctively. Cruelty is not indulgence, it is insurance. It is the shadow behind mercy that gives mercy meaning. Without cruelty, mercy is nothing more than surrender. And this is why so few gentle souls survive when they step into the realm of leadership. They imagine they can reform the rules, replace fear with love, replace enforcement with understanding. But they fail because they underestimate the appetite of human ambition. Men do not respect what is freely given. They respect what can also be taken away. The crown demands cruelty because cruelty is the language the world fears. And fear, like it or not, is the most stable foundation for authority. Love is fleeting, gratitude is conditional, admiration fades with time, but fear endures. The gentle may recoil at this, insisting that love builds stronger bonds. But bonds built on love are fragile, vulnerable to rumor, to shifting loyalty, to the smallest spark of dissatisfaction. Fear, on the other hand, is not swayed by gossip or fleeting emotions. It chains the will, forces obedience, compels silence. This is why every enduring dynasty in history, every empire that lasted beyond its founding, was built not on kindness, but on calculated cruelty. The Romans crucified dissenters along roadsides to remind the masses what defiance cost. Medieval kings displayed traitors' heads on spikes, not as decoration, but as warning. Even in the modern world, cruelty takes subtler forms: firings, cancellations, public humiliations, but the principle is the same. Demonstrate consequence, instill fear, maintain control. And here lies the tragedy for the gentle. If they cannot wield cruelty, they cannot hold the crown. Their mercy will be interpreted as weakness, their patience as hesitation, their forgiveness as permission. And once marked as weak, their rule is already finished. The gentle dream of leading with love, but love without cruelty is a leash the world will use to drag them down. The crown does not ask for cruelty, it demands it. And those who cannot give it will wear the crown only long enough to be destroyed by those who can. Every human being begins with innocence. As children, we trust without suspicion, we love without calculation, we forgive without hesitation. We believe that kindness will be rewarded, that honesty will be respected, that goodness is its own protection. But life arrives like a thief and dismantles these illusions piece by piece. The friend we trusted betrays us. The love we gave freely is taken for granted. The vulnerability we revealed is mocked. The mercy we offered is weaponized against us. With every cut, innocence bleeds out, and something colder takes its place. Some cling to their innocence like a drowning man clutching driftwood, refusing to let go, believing that purity will eventually save them. But the truth is cruel. Innocence is not salvation, it is exposure. The world does not preserve it, it consumes it. Those who carry innocence into adulthood become prey for sharper teeth. Their trust is manipulated, their love exploited, their hope crushed beneath the boots of those who long ago buried their own softness. And so the death of innocence is inevitable, not because we wish to kill it, but because survival demands its sacrifice. To remain innocent is to walk into the jaws of power unarmed. And so, at some point in every life, the gentle must choose: remain innocent and be broken, or surrender innocence and step into the darker knowledge of how the world truly works. The death of innocence does not happen in a single moment. It is a slow erosion, a series of betrayals, humiliations, and realizations that carve themselves into the soul. It begins the first time we see that fairness is an illusion, when effort does not equal reward, when truth is punished and lies are rewarded. It deepens when we discover that loyalty is conditional, that promises dissolve under pressure, that the people who claim to love us may still use us. And it completes itself when we finally understand that goodness does not guarantee safety, that, in fact, it often invites harm. This realization is devastating because it does not only change how we see others, it changes how we see ourselves. We begin to question every act of kindness. Was it weakness? We begin to hesitate before forgiving. Was it permission for another wound? We begin to armor ourselves in suspicion, calculation, and distance. And though this armor protects, it also isolates. The gentle soul who once moved through life open-hearted becomes cautious, guarded, even cold. This is the tragedy of the death of innocence. It robs us not only of illusions, but of connection. We no longer touch the world as we once did. We no longer believe as we once believed. Innocence dies, and in its place rises awareness, sharp, necessary, but heavy. And once it arrives, it never leaves. No man ever regains the purity of his first trust, his first love, his first belief in fairness. Once shattered, innocence is gone forever, and only the memory remains, haunting like a ghost. Yet within the death of innocence lies a paradox. Though it marks the end of purity, it is also the beginning of power. For power is not built on naivety, it is built on clarity. To see the world as it is, without illusions, is to finally step into reality. The death of innocence teaches us that trust must be earned, that mercy must be balanced with consequence, that love must not be blind, that strength is not cruelty, but the refusal to be devoured. It strips away the fantasy that everyone means well and replaces it with the knowledge that intention must always be measured against action. This knowledge is painful, but it is also liberating. For once you understand that the world does not reward goodness simply because it is good, you stop waiting to be saved. You begin to shape your own fate, to wield your own will, to harden where hardness is required. Innocence dies, but in its place, wisdom is born. And wisdom, though colder, is unbreakable. It cannot be exploited the way innocence can. It does not beg to be protected, it protects itself. This is why the death of innocence, though tragic, is also necessary. Without it, we would remain children in a world of predators, lambs among wolves. With it, we may become something greater, not merely victims of cruelty, but architects of strength. And so the gentle must die, in a sense, for the strong to be born. Every crown, every empire, every lasting power is built not on innocence preserved, but on innocence sacrificed. To live is to lose it. To rule is to bury it. And to understand this is to finally see why power hates the gentle. Because innocence reminds power of what it had to kill to survive.